Yes, my body was different when I was younger, and I didn't appreciate it. I was always striving for more. Perfect this, lose this weight, do that. And now, even with my imperfections, I feel sexier and more confident and more comfortable, lights on, and always having an orgasm. You do come into your own, and I think that is kind of how I see the definition of a MILF and why it's so attractive. Who doesn't like confidence?
Welcome to America's #1 sexuality podcast, Dr. Sex Fairy. I am Dr. Kawal Bava, America's favorite sex doctor, and I am here to transform your life. This is our very first episode after our summer hiatus, and we have pulled out all the stops. The Dr. Sex Fairy podcast is now audio and video, so make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Dr. Sex Fairy, in addition to subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. The Dr. Sex Fairy podcast is a forum where we discuss sexual medicine and sexuality in all their flavors. The concept of a MILF is one that we are all aware of. I have always wondered what the attraction is all about. I recently spoke to a lady who embodies the very concept of a MILF, world-famous adult star and author of Getting Wild Sex from Your Conservative Woman, Brandi Love. Welcome, Brandi. I am so happy that you're on the Dr. Sex Fairy podcast today.
I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So let's jump right into it.
Okay.
What is a MILF and why do men find a MILF so attractive?
Well, it's one of those few words that I don't even think is subjective. The term MILF is in itself a definition of a type of woman. When I personally think of a MILF and how I feel about myself now, I get to now be in that category of The Graduate, Mrs. Robinson, Stifler's Mom, American Pie. And when those movies came out, I was already a MILF. I had a child and I was living a particular life. And fast forward 20 years, what I understand about it is it's a feeling. There's a maturity of mind, a maturity of attitude, a maturity of sexuality. It's truly being confident in who you are and where you are in life. So, when you think of a MILF, nobody wants a broke MILF. So she's financially arrived. And that in of itself is sexy to most men. You're a mom, so you're naturally nurturing. Women who have children tend to be less selfish. You're financially viable. You're sexually aggressive and know what you want. What's there not to like?
So you're telling me that women should not feel offended by the term MILF?
Offended, I can't fathom, because to me, it's always been a compliment. From the time I got into the adult industry, that term was being utilized. I embrace it. I loved it. I loved everything it stood for, and I still do to this day. If I stopped being called a MILF, I'd be sad, because to me, it's a term of endearment. You're not going to be called a MILF and people go, "You're unattractive and we don't want you." People say that as you're smoking.
Oh, yeah.
So I've always thought of it as a compliment, to be fair. Some women, I guess, could be offended by it, but I guess that'd be the same type of woman that would be offended if a man said you're attractive or whistled at you. I mean, would that be better for them to go, "You're really unattractive and ugly"? That way I get up. So it's subjective. I guess that some women might find it offensive because of its sexual connotation. But again, you're talking to me who owns it, and I find it, again, a compliment.
Your start in the adult film industry happened somewhat later in life compared to the average adult star. Tell us a little bit about that.
My husband and I were both in corporate America. I was very fortunate to get to stay home with our firstborn for 5 years until she went to kindergarten. And it was about 2.5, 3 years old that I started to want to go back to work. But I didn't want to leave the baby. So interestingly, my husband was traveling and I decided to go to amateur night at the local strip club. Literally, I don't even know where it came from. I mean, I've always been adventurous. It is very natural. I grew up on a stage. I was a classically trained ballerina. I was a figure skater. So I guess having that attention was never scary to me. It was quite natural. I'm a performer. So I thought, well, this is really throwing a loop. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's a late night shift. What if it goes great? I could pick up hours. And I remember calling Chris at like 11 o'clock at night on the way to the club. I said, babe, what would you think if I told you I'm on my way to amateur night? And he was silent for like 2 seconds and he goes, that's hot. I was like, knock 'em dead. And I ended up winning, almost fell off the stage. I had the time of my life. I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never worn stripper shoes, never taken my top off. Like that was next level, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd done bikini contests, but never. So I figured I'm either going to run off stage or this is going to be a new chapter. And here we are 20 years later. I'm obviously an exhibitionist on top of everything else.
I read in your book that you still dance a few times a month.
That, I haven't for about COVID kind of changed that because the feature dancing kind of stopped for a bit. And my life got so busy, to be fair, I don't feature dance anymore, but I think about it. Like there's a few clubs that I would definitely go back to. It's a natural high, the release of endorphins and the excitement of the stage, and performing that way for me is exhilarating. So I never say never. I might do it again.
The night is still young.
The night is still young.
So how do you advise women who are not necessarily in the adult industry, but may want to perform for their partner just to spice things up? How do you recommend that they get started?
Oh my gosh. It's, there's a movie, I can't think of the movie right now, but it's got Arnold Schwarzenegger and, I can't think of her name, but she pole dances on the bedpost. Like she's trying to seduce him and she has no idea what she's doing, but she's so into the moment and she so wants to turn him on. And she ends up falling and it's a total disaster and so sexy. My biggest advice would be don't have any fear. Let your guard down. Be vulnerable. Sex is fun. It's supposed to be fun. And our bodies make funny sounds and we do silly things and we're goofy. I would embrace that and just go for it and keep your love life adventurous. Even if you're not sure you're into it, but your husband or boyfriend says, I would love to see you dance. Do it. Just do it. Do it for him, not for you, right? If that makes sense, you're going to love it. And I would say the same back. There might be things that your woman says, hey, I'd really like to try this. Be open to doing so because your sex life should always be evolving. You don't ever want it to get stagnant.
And like you said, there has to be humor in a relationship. There has to be that lightness because otherwise life is so hard as it is that if you can't even have fun with each other and laugh with and at each other during sex, it's just a lot of stress people put on themselves.
And sex is supposed to be the stress reducer, stress reliever.
Yes.
So definitely being open, have fun, explore, play. I think that's a really important word is we play as kids. You're in the sandbox, you're kicking soccer balls, you're playing baseball, we play. And as adults, we work and we're serious and there's stressors and there's responsibilities. Sex should be our playtime and really have fun.
And I don't think you can really orgasm and enjoy sex to its fullest if you're not having fun, if you don't have that connection with somebody.
The connection, I think you're right about like people taking it so seriously. If you're thinking about what your face looks like or what sounds your body's going to make or what things are going to be released, you're going to be tense. And psychologically, you're not free, which for many women, that's a problem. I would say that you're the doctor, so I'll defer to you, but it would seem from what I've seen in emails and conversations I've had that it's a psychological block that prevents women from having a full orgasm. Would you agree with that?
I think it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, because there are women who are so tense psychologically
Right.
that they cannot let themselves have that release.
They can't relax.
Yes, they cannot relax into it. And some of them will come to my office and blame their partner. But the truth of the matter is, they don't even let the partner go down on them. They don't want to have sex with the lights on. It is such a restricted and oppressive sexual environment that there's no way anybody can be having orgasms in that. That said, some women have issues over time. As we age, we lose collagen, we lose sensitivity in the clitoris. The clitoris itself shrinks. So when that is the area that is most pleasurable to a woman, according to the numbers, only about 18% of women can orgasm vaginally inside. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So when you think about that,
So lucky.
you are a lucky lady. So, when you think about that, it's so important that the clitoris maintains its size. Yet, like the face, the clitoris is sagging too with age. So it's important to maintain the surface area, because the bigger the clitoris, the more you can stimulate and the more pleasure you can have. So yes, psychological, but also physical.
And going back to your very first question, if we can, that it leads right back to what is a MILF and what is it like being a MILF? I didn't think it was like when you're in your 30s and even early 40s and people say you arrive when you get to a particular age. You'll know when you get there. You'll see what I'm talking about. You'll feel what I'm talking about. I never got it, and now I do. My skin's not as tight as when I was younger. My body doesn't have the exact same shape, and I wouldn't trade who I am and how I feel for anything, even the sagging skin. And it's because of the mental maturity, the financial maturity, the comfort within your own skin. Yes, my body was different when I was younger, and I didn't appreciate it. I was always striving for more, perfect this, lose this weight, do that. And now, even with my imperfections, I feel sexier and more confident and more comfortable, lights on, and always having an orgasm. You do come into your own, and I think that is kind of how I see the definition of a MILF and why it's so attractive. Who doesn't like confidence? It's not arrogance. It's comfort with yourself and being confident with whom you are.
I could not agree more, because I think that as I have become older, as I am now into my mid-40s, I feel more myself than I ever have.
100%.
I am at a point where I love myself. This is it. Take it or leave it. I'm living my best life. And I can't imagine that men don't find that attractive. And I do agree with you that that probably is the biggest factor, the most important factor that leads to the attraction of a MILF.
The term MILF really kind of hit its stride with American Pie. Mrs. Robinson, the original, and then it was rekindled with American Pie. And it is now it's a genre within the adult industry next to teen, which used to be number one. Now it's like teen and MILF, which is so polar opposites. Interesting. But it's that pivotal. And I cannot believe that at this point in my career, 20 years in, I just signed an exclusive contract with Vixen Media Group, which I certainly believe in, to most, it is the premier adult entertainment company. And the main site that I'm being featured on is called milfy.com. So the entire site is dedicated to exactly what we're talking about, which is primarily sexually mature, aggressive, capable women seeking their pleasure.
There you go. So tell me about women in the adult industry. Women in the average relationship are often faking orgasms. Are adult stars faking them just as often, or are they having a better time of it?
That comment alone makes me sad, which I'm sure it does you as well, because again, with life stressors, the one release and the one joy we have is sexual pleasure. It's been that way since the beginning of time, and it's the number one most favorite activity, no matter where you live in this world, and typically no matter what gender. So that's shocking statistics, and it's sad that people don't put more effort to ensure that they have an orgasm. Most of the women I know on set have my attitude that we're going to work and we're getting to get paid to have orgasms. Literally, that's my mentality. I am going to get mine. I know he's going to get his. or hers. So that's my attitude. I think that would be the most successful scene. There are times when, probably 3 times in my entire career, that I didn't, and it wasn't because the partner. It was, we got his pop, time to go. Like, scene was over. I'm like,
What about me?
just give me 3 more minutes. So in general, I think women in the industry are striving for that. There is that handful that perhaps just wants to go to work, get their check, and if they aren't required to have one, don't. And maybe even a smaller handful that just don't want one, or aren't thinking of themselves as the one that should, because it's sometimes male centric. The pop shot, everyone knows the pop shot. That's referring to the male. That's not referring to the female, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's in attitude, but it might be strong, but I would say at least 50% of the women in adult strive for a real orgasm.
So let's talk about the men in the adult industry. What are their secrets to staying rock hard for a scene?
There are several, and I'd say each guy has his own protocol. That's part of what makes them such great performers, is they are incredibly in tune to their bodies. I know performers that won't even take aspirin for a headache because they're afraid it'll mess with their willy. They're incredibly organic and in tune to their body. Some utilize supplements, organic, and some use supplements that are therapeutic, like Viagra and Cialis and such. The reason they're in adult entertainment is because they're sexual athletes. They have literally trained their penis and their mind to be one. And it is, again, in 20 years, I think I've had one scene not be able to go through because he couldn't finish or couldn't perform at all. And that's not like bad guy. That's incredibly low stats. These men are, again, just they're athletes. They take the time to do what most guys wouldn't, right? They're horny, they get excited, they jerk off, and they're done. These guys would edge for a whole day. Edging is training your penis to work with you. You're telling it. Well, how many guys spend that kind of time training their dick to work for them? Usually the dick runs the guy, right?
So right.
When it's ready, it gets what it wants, and then it's done. So I give them male performers a tremendous amount of respect because they work hard to be able to get hard when told, stay hard, not come until they're told, and then be able to finish. It's not easy.
I can't imagine it is. I, in fact, talk to my patients about edging in particular, and I've even done podcast episodes about how to last longer. And I can honestly tell you that men underestimate the power of edging, the practicing. It's like athletic performance, like anything else. And you're right. If you're edging, you will last longer.
1,000%. And from what I've heard, and it's with women too. Edging absolutely works with women too. You get much better control over the end result.
Yes.
Because other people could be like, okay, we're ready, go ahead for the pop shot. And they're trying. It's not happening. So again, it takes a lot of practice and wanting to have that kind of control.
Now, when it comes to Viagra and Cialis and even Trimix, which is the on-demand shot that men give themselves for an erection, I'm sure you see that as well. But I feel that it's so much better to fix the issue and to optimize performance by doing healthier things like increasing blood flow, because poor blood flow is the number one cause of erectile dysfunction. And that's why at my office with Bava Wave, with Bava RF, our radio frequency protocol for men, we are having such amazing results. And I literally don't prescribe Viagra and Cialis. And now it's come to a point where I have some urologists sending their patients to us because they say, well, if you want your cancer treated, come to us. If you want your ED addressed, go to Dr. Bava. So crazy times, right?
Well, that's an incredible combination for people. That must give so many people a sense of hope. I mean, because those are pretty serious. You just said 2 things that are both very serious. And now a man that would normally go, it's over. You 2 doctors are able to go, no, it's not. I think that's incredible.
Yes. And I think that doctors need to work with each other. more and not just say, well, here's a Viagra, here's a Cialis, here's a prescription, go home. And people, unfortunately, aren't really exploring the reason why men have sexual dysfunction. They're just giving them a prescription and calling it a day. And it's such a disservice to our patients, really.
Well, I 100% am on board with you in all things that I believe in getting to the root. No matter how hard it is or the work needed to get there, if you can get to the root of it, you can fix it. Like for real.
Like orgasms. Because
100%.
I do believe that except for a very minute, very, very minute number of women, the average woman can have an exceptional orgasm. She just has to give herself the chance to get there.
And why wouldn't you want to? I don't.
right.
I don't understand that. And if you've never felt one, that's like where you need a PhD. I would never be able to understand why somebody wouldn't want to, right? Unless there's something that happened. People have their issues.
Well, you know, some people have been told that sex is dirty
That's
and
where I was
sex is
going.
bad.
That's where I
And
was
especially some, religious ideology does have that concept of sex being dirty and it only being present for procreation.
Sure.
Now, when you've been raised with that kind of mentality, when you've been told that sex is dirty or sex is only for making babies, then you feel cheap. When you put yourself in that situation, you feel guilty, like you're going to hell because you let your partner go down on you. So I'm sure that messes with a lot of women.
I have no doubt. I mean, I've been getting the emails for decades now with women trying to free themselves from that, and or men trying to help their wives free themselves from those constraints. And again, that's PhD. You just got to be willing to do the work. You can get over it. Look, you're an adult now. And it might sound unempathetic, but it's not. You get to a point in your life where nobody can control you. Your parents aren't controlling you. Religion's not controlling you. You now get to make your own choices. And why we wouldn't choose to embrace our sexuality and run with it, because I don't know anybody who's sexually liberated that's not happy. I'm just saying. It is something that can absolutely destroy a human when they're not living out who they actually are sexually.
Yes, and I think pleasure is important. And so even if you don't have a partner who's fulfilling you, well, maybe it's time to change the partner. But
Or get a
also-
vibrator.
Get a vibrator. I was just about to say, get a vibrator.
Yeah, I mean,
please
you
tell
have
me
love
that-
and everything else, and you
Yeah.
found your one, but you just can't get there. Bring in some toys. Again, that goes with the play, being adventurous.
You know what blows my mind is that so many women don't let their partner try. I mean, there are men who don't try, but so many women are getting in the way of their own pleasure.
I've heard that before too, where a gentleman will say, "I don't understand my wife or girlfriend won't let me go down on her." I'm like, wait, won't let you? So that my first thought is there something wrong, right? And then I would say again, if there's something wrong, why won't she fix it? I'm not a fan of letting things linger. If something's not right, fix it. And again, whether it's psychological or physical, that's hard for me. Have you ever met a man who says, "Yeah, no, I don't want that blowjob"?
No,
It's never going to happen.
never going to happen.
I don't know why women would ever say, especially for an eager partner, her to go, no, I don't like that.
You know, I have a patient who came to me a few months ago who talked to me about inability to orgasm. I ask a lot of very detailed questions because if I don't ask detailed questions, I don't really understand where they're coming from.
Sure.
So I asked her about her history, medical history, childbirth, menopause, all of those important questions. But then I asked her about oral sex. And she said, well, we don't do that. And I said, why? He doesn't want to go down on you? And she said, I don't let him. And I couldn't understand why. So she said to me, what if I smell? And I said, just for that, you have not let your husband of X number of years go down on you? And she was committed to that. She said, that's not happening.
She's really, really holding back his joy too, though, to be fair, especially if a gentleman wants to. Like, I love oral, giving and receiving. And I mean, you do things, you know your own body. I mean, I'm not shy about it. I know exactly what I taste like, what I smell like. I can't imagine not being aware of your body and or him. Your scent might put him over the edge. We're made that way.
Pheromones are a real thing.
Right. So where she thinks she might smell or whatever, however she described it, she doesn't even know. It seems like, right? She says, I might. And she might be preventing him from experiencing that a bond that the pheromones it would drive him nuts in the best way possible. That's a shame.
It really is.
Yeah.
And, the orgasm gap exists because of things like this. So we love to blame the men, but we have to take responsibility.
100%. And if you don't know how to give yourself an orgasm, how can you possibly have your mate help give you one?
And vibrators are such an important tool for that.
Yep, I agree.
See?
Yep.
But why not?
Yeah.
And there are women even today who come to my office who say, Dr. Bava, why don't you carry sex toys in your office? I am just too embarrassed to walk into a sex store. And they say to me, I don't want to order it online. When I say, you can order it online. They say, but no, what if that box comes and my partner opens it?
Then probably be thrilled.
They might think it's hard.
Absolutely.
Well, Brandi, let's talk about the MILF tune-up.
That sounds fun.
What are you going to do with you next?
I want to know, what are you going to do with me?
Well, you mentioned to me how very orgasmic you are already, but that more is better.
You and I had a conversation not that long ago. We were talking about how much effort we put into our appearance. You eat healthy, you exercise, we get Botox from time to time. There's so many things that we can do, extensions to help us feel our most beautiful and look our youngest, right? Nobody thinks about that. Well, why wouldn't we also take care of our most pleasurable area on our body? We think nothing of spending hundreds of dollars on injections. And if you're telling me that a little something down there can refresh and make you feel even more orgasmic or more sensitive, sign me up.
Well, we're going to be doing this on you this coming week.
I can't.
And that will be part 2 of this episode.
Perfect.
See, the thing is that the vagina undergoes wear and tear just like the rest of our body, like you said. Now, we do tune-ups on our face. We do tune-ups everywhere, including body contouring. But vaginal rejuvenation is really misunderstood. Do you know that the average woman says to me, well, I'm not that bad yet. And I want to shake them and say, sister, how bad do you want things to get before you fix them?
Yeah.
And what about preservation? Things may not be bad at all, but why not preserve? Because you're always going to have your best result and your best orgasm if you hit the problem before it even exists.
Yeah, brilliant. I 100% agree with that.
So, Brandi, I can't wait to get you in the office and then do the follow-up with you.
Can we do it now?
This episode started out asking what defines a MILF. Clearly, the term is about so much more than simply a hot woman to have sex with. Strong, beautiful, experienced, and powerful women are a force to reckon with, and clearly, there are men who appreciate that. Thank you for spending time with me on this episode of the Dr. Sex Fairy podcast. If you are watching this on YouTube, don't forget to leave questions and comments. I will answer them personally. Make sure you like my video and subscribe to my channel, Dr. Sex Fairy, so that you never miss a video. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or elsewhere, do subscribe to the Dr. Sex Fairy podcast. We have more great content and guests to come. Check out my super hit TikTok account, Dr. Sex Fairy, and my Instagram, The Real Dr. Sex Fairy. Until next time.